Welcome to another episode of Talk FS. Today, I'm joined by an inspiring financial planner, Claire Bedswick. Claire's journey has taken her from employed roles to the challenges and freedom of self-employment. Along the way, she's juggled studying, being a mum, working full-time, and staying present online, all while championing financial education and accessibility within the community. This episode is perfect for aspiring financial planners, career changers, or anyone curious about blending professional growth with personal purpose. Today, we'll be diving into encouraging more women to consider a career in financial planning, juggling studying, motherhood, and full-time work while staying present online, and adding value to your community. Claire, thank you for joining me today and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me along.
So I'm really excited for today's episode. As I mentioned in my intro there, we've got sort of a variety of topics we'll end up covering. But let's, start at the beginning. What was your journey into becoming a financial planner?
Okay, so I think like many, it's not a career choice that's presented to you at school or college, and it's something that we all tend to fall into. So my first experience was with a bank, NatWest Bank. My history through school, I didn't go to university, that wasn't an option to me. I started job roles and felt that I needed to find a career. I joined NatWest Bank, and that's where I sort of fell in love with the money aspect and learning about the behind the scenes of how money works. I then went onto a career path, which is behind the scenes of financial advisors. So working with hundreds of financial advisors throughout the UK for 10 to 15 years, but always knowing that once I did my qualifications, I wanted to be out there at the front. There's not enough women financial advisors, as we know. And that's what drove me forward to eventually, once I found my confidence, becoming a financial planner.
Yeah, fantastic. And we'll come on to that later on in terms of how can we encourage more women to be in financial planning and consider it as a career option. Do you feel your previous career helped for when you did make that transition into being a financial planner, that you had a bit of awareness of the industry, you'd seen the other side of the role?
Definitely, 100%. I like to say I grew up in the profession and I grew up behind the scenes. I've had the privilege of working with a lot of great financial advisors in different aspects throughout the UK. And I am not a textbook learner, so I learned as I went along. So great experience, great people out there. It's a great profession. We're just not pushed enough to be seen by our customers or clients that we do exist.
And did you have any doubts when you were considering it as an option? Because you've been, behind the scenes. Did you think, well, can I make it in the front? Was there any doubt there for you?
Lots of doubt. I am not naturally a self-confident person. So there was that big worry about, will I succeed in this? Am I good enough to do this role? Will people want to sit in front of me and talk about money and for me to help them? It was a huge decision. It was probably quite an impromptu decision post-COVID, where I felt that if I'm going to do it, now's the time. I've gone into my 40s. We've gone through COVID. I need to do something. It's about me now, basically. It's about what my career is.
Yeah. And do you have any sort of tips or advice for dealing with those sort of little doubts and niggles?
Yeah, just believe in yourself. Just know that you can do it. You've got the expertise, you've got the knowledge. Anybody that sits in front of you, no matter where they are or what money they've got or what their issues are or their objectives, have come to you for advice. So know that you've got that in you and you can sit and work through that with your clients, and you are good enough and great enough to do that.
Excellent advice, really. It is just really, if you don't back yourself, who is going to back you? And it's probably not as scary as you think. It's that first hurdle, isn't it? Now, for you, when you had then that desire to become a financial planner, you chipped away at exams and you obtained your full diploma. What was then the path in front of you? Were you looking at employed? Were you looking at joining the role as self-employed?
I think when I did my exams, I did that through my career journey. So at that moment in time, it was about balancing home life, work life, and getting those exams. When it came to making that decision about being employed versus self-employed, it was about me being in control of my destiny. I've been employed for a long time, and now I wanted to be self-employed. I wanted to know what I wanted to do, set my own boundaries, and go out and achieve what that was.
So not only were you making then the jump from sort of behind the scenes to then in front, you were then also adding to it as well with going from the safety and security of being employed to then going self-employed. That must have been quite a, full-on period for you.
Yes, really full on. And I probably didn't anticipate what I was taking on at the time. I think a lot of people said to me that is a brave move, but I had to make a brave move. I was ready to do it. I'd hid away long enough that it was kind of a now or never scenario. I went into my role with no clients, with no leads, just me going, this is what I want to do. And I want to achieve being a financial planner and being available and educating and understanding and being that go-to person for people.
I think that's so important that you set out your values from the outset, really. That must have helped steer you during those tougher periods to really know what you were doing it for.
Yes, yeah, 100%. I was trying, it's really difficult in our profession because we're not seen enough. And, it's always about higher net worth. And when you're looking on social media, it's that 1% world of what retirement looks like, things like that. So what people always think with you is that you're not reachable to them because they don't have enough. With Slaburn Financial Planning, we look at financial planning being for everyone at
Yeah.
some point through our life, no matter what that looks like, where we are. Financial planning is involved. So it's about education, it's about empathy, it's understanding your clients and them feeling comfortable to sit in front of you without the fear of being judged.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. So it was also really important to make sure you matched up with a firm who aligned with the values you set out earlier there as well then.
Yes, yeah. I sort of did this impromptu decision where I was like, right, I need to come away from the role I'm in. I need to have a month or two where I need to consider what my options are. And I did that. I went away and looked at employed versus self-employed. I had a number of conversations around that. Labour and financial planning, I have known a long time, and have always backed me. They've always said to me, when you're ready, Claire, you're the ideal person to come in here and come and work with us. They allow me to be who I want to be. They know what my passions, what my objectives are, the education side, things that I want to achieve, and they support me with that. And I think that is really important to me as an individual and to anyone as an individual. We're all different. We don't work off the same hymn sheet. We should all be doing what fits with our purpose.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. If I put my recruitment hat on for a minute, you've mentioned you had conversations about employed, you had conversations about self-employed. You mentioned earlier that, you walked in through the door, no clients, no leads necessarily, yet the business you chose to join on paper, then there must have been better options on paper, financially or to get you kickstarted. You chose the one that wasn't, but because it aligned the most with your purpose and who it allowed you to be, that's who you joined and that's who you're still with, years later now. It's so fascinating, isn't it, sometimes that we can get caught up in all the financial elements and, this and that. But sometimes it just comes down to that cultural fit.
Yeah, definitely. The income is always a big thing. We've all got bills to pay, mortgages to pay. Weirdly, I was listening to something this morning about freedom, and we use the term financial freedom quite a lot. And you know what? Yes, financial freedom is important, but it's also about your own mental health and what's important to you to go out and do your role every day and to have that support behind you to do that. And I'm always a great believer that, if you're doing the right things, you're making the right noises, you're taking the right steps, then it does come to you, but it does take time.
Yeah, yeah. And talking to you previously, it feels like those hard years of sort of you've gone past that point now. You're starting to see the benefits. You're helping grow your business, but also you're actually now helping the wider Slaburn business as well grow. That must be reassuring for you that all those hard years, long nights, juggling a lot of stuff has come good.
Yes, yes, yeah, definitely. I will say yes to opportunities. I always say I am an introvert, but I can be out there. But when I've been out there, I need to go back and sort of retreat quite a lot. But I will say yes to any opportunity. I've done presentations, I've done women and pensions, I've spoken in front of the military, I've been in schools. I've spoke to teachers, I've been in workplaces, I have banged on quite a few doors to be seen and to be heard, and for people then to learn to trust me as an individual and to learn to trust financial planning.
Yeah. Okay. We mentioned earlier in the intro, along this journey, you've had to juggle also, studying, being a mother and looking after your family. How have you had methods in place to kind of help juggle and spin all those plates all at the same time?
A very good partner. It's having people around you, and the world has an expectation from you as a mother about what your role as a mum should be, and it's sort of sometimes if you deviate from that, you feel that the world's not accepting of it. And I'm open and honestly say that I went back to work after 6 months with my son, and that was right for me as an individual. That was right for me as a mum. That's right for my son to see his mum happy doing what she loves, which was building her career, having a partner that supports that, a family that supports you. It's always, we talk about community and network. It's having the right building blocks around you to give you what you need to go and live your life.
That's fantastic. And so it is when you're making that career change or big leap of faith, it's a team decision, albeit, you're leading from the front. But if you get that support and that buy-in, because you are going to have to lean on them, aren't you? And we're in it together here. That's so important. So I guess anyone who is listening, who's, considering that, just make sure you've got the right people in your corner, whoever that might be, because you probably will need to lean on them at some point.
Yeah, and it's all through as well. It's also about having the right mentors in this profession and the right people who, if you need anything, you just pick up the phone and give us a call and speak to us. And you've got guidance and people out there that when you're having those self-doubts, no matter where you are, you can be one day up here, the next day you can be quite low, because it is juggling all the time, that you've just got the right people around you to go, right, come on, we've got this, we can do this.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially, at the time of recording, it's summer holidays, now more than ever, juggling childcare and stuff like that. Summer holidays is always a challenging period for a lot of families.
Yeah, very much. I was just on with my son about 5 minutes before to make sure. Luckily, we're at the age now where he's a teenager and he's more self-sufficient, so it does get easier. But I did have to just check in to make sure he's eaten and, he's not still in bed and all that kind of stuff.
Fantastic. You mentioned a minute ago, you've done a lot. You knock on many doors. You've done, countless presentations. What fuels you to want to go out to the community and offer those presentations?
Educating. Education is so important. We are not taught anything about money, and we're expected to go into the big wide world and know it all. So education is really important. I've always had a drive to work with women and educate women on things like pensions, doing talks around there. Not specifically all I've done. I've gone into the wider world as well. But it's knowing people can have an honest conversation with you and sit down and go, these are my worries, these are my fears, anything from budgeting all the way up to inheritance tax planning. Nobody has the answer to it all, and everything that fits in the middle of that is such a vast topic. So you want people to be able to knock on your door and sit in front of you and ask the questions that they want to ask.
So you do it for helping. Is there any additional benefits to you in your own personal aspect there as well of doing those presentations?
Yeah, I think, there's always an element that you get out of the role when you're working with somebody and you work through that, whether that's them buying their first home, whether it's just taking life insurance to make sure they've got peace of mind for the family, giving them an understanding of what the pensions mean to them. Can I retire? What does retirement look like? So knowing that you walk out of meetings, you're with these clients on a journey. This isn't transactional for me. This is, you're my clients, we're on this journey, I'm in this role for the next 20 plus years, hopefully. So we're in it together through the good times and the bad times.
From talking to you, clients must pick up on those elements you're mentioning and develop that real sense of trust with you. So, it's unsurprising to me that along the way that you pick up inquiries and people wanting to explore further, really. In terms of those opportunities, you mentioned you've had to knock on some doors. Is there anything you've learned along the way to sort of improve your conversion with getting those opportunities, getting people to say yes to you?
I think there's an element of the client's got to want to work with you as well. So,
Okay.
we can all talk about money. We can all want to learn and know what to do with it, but sometimes we can all bury our head in the sand. I've done the same. My journey with money isn't as simple as people think. They think as a financial planner, you've got everything together, your life's been perfect, you've got degrees, you've got this, that, and the other. And then when you sit down and go and talk to them and go, this is my journey with money, and this is how I've learned, and this is how I've made things better for myself, then that client's got to want to go on that journey with you.
Yeah.
And you can read with clients. I've learnt to read when a client's invested with you or when they're just sort of part way there.
And does that then require saying no sometimes, or acknowledging that we might not be right for each other?
Yes. Yeah. And I think I've been fortunate enough in the last year now to be able to do that more. And I am doing that a lot more. We talk through the work we do. We talk through our fees. I had someone speak to me the other week and just basically said, well, I don't want to pay your fee. So, if they don't understand the benefit of working with a financial planner, and we can explain it to them, we can talk to them, but sometimes all they see is a figure. So they don't want to do that. So it is about working with the clients you want to work with. You've got to resonate together. Does that make sense? Or you've got to be on the same path. I want to ring my client on an annual review and go, right, we're ready to sit down. Let's have a chat, and then be invested in that.
Yeah. And do you find, because you are self-employed and you've got this long-term view where you've got to think of the career ahead of you and this is your future, does that help when you're making decisions on a daily basis, who to work with, to go out and knock on doors, to do presentations that you have no idea whether you're going to get any benefit from it? Do you find being self-employed just has that additional, depth for what you're doing there?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think it gives you more opportunity to do that kind of work. And for me, that's my passion. That's the kind of work I really enjoy doing. If I was in an employed role and I've got somebody telling me how to fill my 9 till 5 day, and it's not 9 till 5, by the way, working on that, but I'm not then doing the things that give me the most joy of my day. Sitting here speaking to pension providers and collecting paperwork and letters of authorities, that's not the enjoyment side, is it? It's about sitting in front of clients and doing the educational pieces, and knowing that when a client sits in front of you and says, oh, I was speaking to my friend, they've sent me your way, they said you're the person to go to, that's when it hits, because you're doing the right thing. People coming through your door because they've heard about you and the work that you do, and that you're trustworthy, and that they want to then open up to you about what their problems are, what their objectives are.
Definitely, especially if you think, you're going to be doing at least an annual review, but you touch clients many times throughout the year anyway. If you're building that community of people that you're thinking, do I want to see this person every year, at least for the next 20 years? You've got to make sure you're building that pool of people that really align with you, and they align back the other way as well.
Yeah, you're building a long-term relationship with your clients, and especially as a community. I walk to the office and I can pass 4 of them in the morning and say, hi, good morning, you all right? I can sit and have a wine outside the pub on a Friday night. It's like, hi, are you okay? And I know each and every one of these clients. I can sit and go through where exactly they are in their life without referring to the back office system. And that's how I like it. I'm going to have a limitation of what clients I can have. What that looks like at this moment, I don't know. But that community feel that I have built over the last 4 years is a really nice feeling.
Yeah, so it is during that build-up phase for you, starting from 0 to now where you are 4 years later, is do just make sure you're always thinking long-term. Try not to cut those corners and just get clients that don't actually align with you, because it's counterproductive then, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. And I've had a couple, don't get me wrong, there's a couple that along the way we've sort of departed and said this isn't right. And I know when it's not right now. I know more. I've learned more in the past 4 years, to the point where now I think I've built enough self-confidence to just say, I don't think this relationship will work long time.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Just changing gear slightly for a minute. You mentioned earlier in terms of, having that extrovert, layer to yourself sometimes. You go out there and make sure you're online. And we talked earlier about being present online. Talk to me more about then the social media, element of the role and having to sort of show up and be present. How have you managed that over the last 4 years?
Yeah, we've sort of had different variations of how involved we've been with social media, and we've done quite a bit to start with, where I've been online more, I've been talking, I've done everything everyone expects you to do on social media and everybody wants you to do on social media. But I think what you've got to find as well is what's right for you. And I do love social media. I think it's brilliant. There's so much out there now. It's being present, getting people to build a trust. They know they can see you, but you've also got to think about yourself. And being online too much was too much for me. And I'm going to accept that and say, do you know what? I'm happy doing the community work. I'm happy to be seen on social media, and I am on social media. People can see who I am, they can see my lifestyle, but I'm not quite ready to be an influencer on social media. I think there's some great people out there who do that, qualified financial advisors. They've got great boards, etc. For me, I may take a step back into it. I haven't decided yet.
I think that very much aligns with a lot of what you've been saying about doing it in a sustainable way, which makes a lot of sense. I do agree with you. I think in today's day and age, you need an element of social media presence. So if people want to do their due diligence on you, they can see a bit about who you are, but it is finding that balance, actually, what's right for you, what's healthy for you more than anything as well.
Yeah, I get more interactions when people see the personal side of me. People do love to learn, but I don't want to be on there, tell them if you'd done this is what you could get. If you'd done that, this is what we could have done. It just feel that it needs to build it so you become approachable and they can knock on your door, or they can send you a message and say, can you answer this question for me?
Yeah. Okay, fantastic. Now, we touched on it at the early part of our conversation in terms of you have desire for more women in financial planning. I'm seeing it more and more, and I totally agree with you. Do you feel there's anything the industry could do differently that might help make that more approachable as an industry?
Yeah, I think women need a different approach. For me, the biggest fear about being a financial advisor was going into that corporate sales world, is how it felt it was. And I don't see my role as selling. I see my role as supporting your clients, as being there for them. Anything else falls alongside that and falls along with that. I'm not a 9 till 5 person. I can't sit at my desk 5 days a week. That's how I'm built. I need to have different things going on. I'm in my 40s now, so there's other things that come into it. There's, for women, there's menopause, perimenopause. It has a huge effect on them. And if you're not in the right work environment and you're not being supported, then we retreat. And that self-confidence goes, and we take 10 steps back. And what we need to be doing is saying, right, let's push you forward. Let's support you and push you more and more to enable you to do this role, because we need more women doing it.
I think what we discussed earlier is actually there are businesses out there that will align with you. It does require a bit of looking. Obviously, you were in a fortunate aspect. You were aware of a lot of businesses in your prior career, so you'd almost kind of vetted a lot. You'd been able to lift the lid on a lot of them and go, oh, I would work for you, and yes, I would work for you. But it is just that reassurance that if you are considering it, no matter what your values are, that there will be a firm that does really click with you. And then also you mentioned earlier as well about really having the right mentor as well in your corner. Has that made a big difference to you, having that support?
Yeah, a huge difference. I within the Slaburn team, and with Clive specifically, who's the director of Slaburn, he's been absolutely amazing with me. He's been on this roller coaster journey with me, so he's seen my highs, but he's also seen me at my lowest. When I've been on the phone to him and I've said, right, I need to go and get an employed role, I need to get that salary, and he's had these conversations and he's kept me going and he's picked me up, and he's been one of the biggest supporters I've probably had throughout my whole journey. To emphasise on that a little bit more, I've just bought into the business, so I am a small percent of a shareholder, because we're both looking at the longevity, Slaburn, and what my role looks like. And I'm also going on as a director through the FCA. So it's been a huge step and a huge transition, and it's been quite overwhelming because I don't see myself This goes back to self-confidence as being good enough to have that role. And that's within me. That's work I have to do on myself. Whereas Clive sees it and has said from day one, since he first met me, you will be in my business and you will be an advisor and I'll bring you through. And here we are, 10 years later of knowing him.
And now the next chapter as well.
Yeah.
You'll be an advisor in my business and you'll be by my side helping make decisions on how to run the business. That's a huge step. So yeah, congratulations.
Yeah. So yeah, more responsibility.
Yeah, but it's good. It's growth, isn't it? You know, you don't want to stand still. I definitely get that impression.
No, I don't stand still, but yet you do have to remember how far you've come, and it's because we are always looking for the next thing, aren't we? And I think we do need to take that moment to look back and go, right, okay, this is the journey we've been on, which is quite good to talk to you today, to actually rethink and go through all this and think, oh, right, yeah, okay, this is what it looks like.
Yeah, most definitely. And helping get, more people into the profession, particularly women as well. When we discussed previously, you mentioned also that as an industry, we need to not just focus on more grads or people at the start of their career. We also need to consider those who had a successful career in whatever industry and a career changes. Talk to me a little bit more about what you mean by that.
Yeah, I think, this is such a huge profession that, there's so many different roles behind the scenes of what we do as a financial advisor, whether that's in the financial advisor world or whether it's in the provider world or the behind the scenes world, as I call it. There's so many people out there and there's so many conversations I've had with people and women who've said, oh, I'd love to do that one day. So it doesn't necessarily mean we have to come through university. We don't have to be a graduate. It's life. What's life taught us? What's money taught us? What we're learning from the roles that we're in? How do we implement that into a client world? So how do you support people making a transition from one role to another, but being comfortable, whether that's employed or self-employed, because there's a big money aspect to it as well. So do I want that guaranteed income, or can I take that bigger risk and go self-employed? And it's support. It's how do we support people to do that?
Yeah, definitely, because that's almost the problem in itself with then career changes, is because by nature they're probably going to be 30s, 40s, 50s, or whatever it might be, and naturally by that point you've accumulated a fair amount of bills to pay on a regular basis. There is that then immediate stumbling block with then the financial element, whereas if you considered maybe a grad or someone at the early career, they might be able to lean on parents potentially, where taking the risk is not as considerable. So you went into that alternative where you joined on a self-employed, you joined with no clients. Is it then really about then the business planning element that's really fundamental to how am I going to get from zero to over what period? Is that really important then? Even if you can't offer financial benefit, it's offering the business, the planning side then.
Yeah, I think everybody talks about business plan, and you do have to have a business plan, but it's about not overthinking it as well. If I'd have probably done this role 15 years ago, I'd have probably done it on an employed basis. But age and where I am in my journey decided that, taking the self-employed was the right thing to do. And having a business plan is great, but it's also about just being seen. You've got to go out. If you sit behind your desk, nobody's going to know you're there.
Yeah. So it's the actual execution of the business plan, but also just get on with it and go knock on doors, go network. Yes, people are going to pick up the phone and call you, but they're far more likely to do that if they know who you are.
Yes, be seen. So I think for me, I started off as a small business community, women in business. There was a number of us who were doing small businesses at the site. We formed a community there. I did the women in pension talks locally. I work with an accountant, so I've got an office space within their office, which has built a good relationship. Being online, so being present. There's so many different things that I've done that you learn what works and what doesn't. But over time, as you do it, you constantly build that relationship. I could have done a presentation 2 years ago and the client may come in my door tomorrow. It's not instant.
And that's then you just got to ride out that early phase where it's compounding, isn't it? Everything you do today, you may get an inquiry next week, but if you get 2 years, well, you've got to put those hard yards in to begin with, haven't you? Because it will come good. You can't see it in those early days, can you? You have to get past that point, and then you kind of reach that light bulb moment, don't you?
Friends and family, brilliant. We did a social media page, everything you do on there, all those friends and family like and share. But that knocks on, starts being seen, other people start finding you. And, it's having people around, again, your community that support you, that enable you to go, I'm doing this job because I've got all these people behind me.
Be prepared to beat that drum hard and regular, especially in the early days. Because also, fundamentally, if you have less clients, you've got to be making sure you're using that time that in a year, 2 years, 3 years, when your diary is going to be filled with client appointments. Well, if you don't have that client appointment right now, what are you doing to go generate that client appointment then?
Yes. Yeah, you've got to be sort of constantly thinking ahead. So, your pipeline might look well now and you think, oh, that's great, I'm okay. But all of a sudden you're like, oh, what about November and December? And then you're into early next year. So all of a sudden you're thinking, right, well, how do I build that pipeline to come back through? And how, is that through networking? Is it through a presentation? What do you do? So you've gone constantly, it's a spinning plate. You sort of go through different levels and areas, and you then end up back at the beginning to go through it all again.
And in terms of your journey into being a financial planner, were you ready for the emotional side of the client-facing work?
No, I feel people's journeys. Empathy is an important word in my world. So I think when I first started out, it's just normal everyday stuff, clients. But then I had an experience where one of my clients lost their partner suddenly. So a sudden death. And that really took a lot from me, because I was like, I've just seen them last week. We're starting this journey about the retirement planning. And now all of a sudden his world's upside down. And his first person to contact was me, because we were supposed to be meeting. It did take a lot for me to understand sort of how do I, for me, deal with that when I'm sitting in front of somebody who's been through so much, to support them financially, but then knowing you're taking on their thoughts and their feelings and everything about what's happened in their world, and you've got to look after yourself as well. So the biggest thing for me when I'm taking all this on and I'm dealing with clients in different scenarios is to make sure that I'm taking care of myself behind the scenes.
Yeah. Okay, that's really useful advice as well. There is, make sure you don't just be that sponge, because at some point it will build and build and build. You need to be processing what you're having to work through as well on behalf of your clients.
Yeah. And there's great times as well. Some clients have a really, some good stories that you can tell, and, can I retire? And you're talking through what the plans are and what they can go off and do. And it's nice. It's a really good sort of nice feeling. And you might get somebody at the beginning of the journey who hasn't done enough. So what work do we need to put in place to get you to do enough? And you can see as you're working through it, and their relationship with money is getting better, and the building. And then that side of it is really rewarding as well.
Okay, well, this has been, a fantastic conversation. I've really enjoyed learning more about you, Claire, and your journey. I think for listeners really is making sure that they have that confidence and back themselves, even when you don't really feel it. If you see this as a future, make sure you do give yourself the confidence to try, and make sure you've got a good network and team around you to support you through those harder days. And particularly there are the right businesses out there really that do align. It sounds you've hit the right firm straight away. Sometimes people have to move once or twice to find that, don't they, as well? And that's okay. It's about finding somewhere that you really align, so you get fulfillment every day from what you're doing as well, really. And any final things you suggest adding for our listeners today?
Yeah, I always say, say yes to the opportunities. I've got a great friend of mine who always backs me as well. And no matter where my thought process is and where I am thinking I can't do that, it's say yes to the opportunities and go out there and do them, because you don't know where that's going to lead to for you. So,
yeah. Well, that's a perfect place to end then today. So yeah, say yes.
yes, do the podcast, do the everything, and just say yes. Be seen.
And if you're listening, say yes to subscribing to our channel as well, hey, because we really appreciate your time today, Claire. And for us, with what we're trying to do for you guys listening is deliver similar conversations like this, which provide, fantastic support, fantastic ideas, so that you can go on and develop in your own self as well.